Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries RPG podcast with John and Hannah.
Hi.
And once again, we're cracking open the post bag and looking at some of your lovely voicemails and emails. So without further ado, let's see who our first caller is.
Hey, John, this is Randy from Biggest Geekus again. I think I screwed up that story. I was chuckling on the inside. So, about my wife's character, the Scion, just to clarify, there was a group of wizards that were their great enemy, and they finally met one on the streets. They were high level, 16th level. She wanted to use diplomacy to get him to stop messing with the kids. And when she goes up to do it, she realizes she has very few ranks in diplomacy. And she was kind of like, oh, screw it, we hate these guys anyway. And so she cast Disintegrate. And everybody just kind of laughed. And after that, anytime we would meet something that was really powerful, the group would look at my wife and say, why don't you use diplomacy? Or it became diplomatize it instead of disintegrate it. So probably loses something if I have to explain it. But it's funny for our group. Take care.
Cheers for that, Randy. Absolutely love it. I think John's been fairly skilled in the old diplomancy himself now and then.
Yeah, I've been known to be extremely diplomatic with some NPCs in my time, you know, when it's called for. But yeah, thanks very much, Randy. But I think Randy's got a little bit more to say, so take it away, Randy.
Just finished listening to your In-Jokes podcast. Really like that. Thought I would share one of ours. One of them we recently talked about on Biggest Geekus. Joe and I were playing back in the early 1E days, and came into a room and there was some rubble. And some of the players were like, you better shoot the rubble with an arrow. And Joe's like, that's dumb. They're like, dude, I know Randy's going to have something in there. And so I was like, I'm not shooting the rubble. So he walked up, and of course, I didn't have anything planned, but I had to make a giant rock python, which happened to be poisonous, jump out and bite him. So it's kind of become, shoot the rubble is the mantra. Whenever you see something, some sort of ruins, shoot the rubble. So I got another one I want to share, but I'll do that in another message. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Randy. That's a great story. But before we get into commenting on it in more detail, I wonder if there's another point of view on what the players thought of that.
Hello, this is Joe from the Biggest Geekus podcast, and I was just listening to your episode on in-jokes, and I found it very entertaining. I also have one of my own. There are many, but the one that stands out over the years is where we all holler, shoot the rubble. This comes from when our group was confronted with an empty room except for a little rubble. They all said, shoot the rubble, and I said, no, there's nothing there. It's just rubble. So I walked up to it, and sure enough, a tentacle reached out, grabbed me, and I believe killed me instantly. Though there really wasn't anything there. The DM, who shall remain nameless, Randy, decided to be funny and put something there anyway. So from then on, the whole shoot the rubble thing became a hilarious in-joke for us. We have to explain it sometimes with new people, but they usually get it pretty fast. Anyway, good work on the episode, and talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed that. It's great to get the two calls from you both talking about different sort of views on the same thing. And yeah, as for GMs sort of sliding a little something into a game when it probably wasn't there previously, I think we've all done it from time to time, you know.
Well, come on, if the players come up with a good idea, it'd be rude not to use it.
That's it, exactly. And I've always looked at it the way, if players pretty much sort of telegraph to you as a GM what they want in a game, why not put it in there? You know, if they're telling you what they want and you're all there to have fun and they're saying, this is what we enjoy or this is what we're going to find funny, just put it in there. Great stuff. Love the story, guys. Thank you very much for those calling. It's greatly appreciated.
How many XP for a pile of rubble?
Oh, I don't know, actually. There's probably a chart for it in the one of the monster manuals somewhere. There'll probably be a description in the third ed monster manual of what skills a pile of rubble has and different hit. Oh, and in fourth ed there's bound to be at least 3 different versions of a pile of rubble. There'll be a rubble lord or a rock lord or something that is a battlefield controller or something like that. And we have another call from Joe at Biggest Geekus coming up, so take it away, Joe.
I was just listening to your Cloaker episode, and wow, that reminded me of two things. Mothman, which is more a harbinger kind of prophecy device. But it also reminded me of the Beastmaster movie, where it had, at some point in it, these creatures that were large and leathery, and they'd surround a person with their leathery wing-like appendages and digest them almost instantly. It was pretty gross, but fun. But thanks for that episode. It was really great. Keep up the good work. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks again, Joe. Yeah, a few people suggested Beastmaster to us, and in fact, myself and Hannah watched it recently.
And then recorded a podcast about it.
Yeah, that led on to our Animal Companions episode, which came out this Monday, so feel free to check that out. The bat creatures in it were very entertaining. I mean, obviously you could see the sort of like the limits of the special effects, and let's say 1982, I think it was, but with those practical effects, you know, a little goes a long way if it's done well. And I thought those creatures were fantastic. I could certainly see sort of, if you wanted to maybe have like a slightly more humanoid cloaker, you could maybe sort of take the visuals of that a bit more, or you maybe wanted to use the cloaker stats, but just like finesse it a little bit so the players don't know exactly what monster it is. You could definitely use those, the physical description of those creatures, and pretty much just keep the same stats as a cloaker, to be perfectly honest. But I'm glad you enjoyed the episode, dude. Thank you very much.
And many thanks for the recommendation. We always appreciate film recommendations. It's rare that we find one that we haven't sat and watched together. So,
yeah,
many thanks.
As we said in the Monday episode, I know I've watched it when I was very young, so sort of like late 80s, but Hannah hadn't watched it at all, and I'd not seen it since like my first watch. So it was really nice to like watch a bit of like cheesy fantasy and just relax and enjoy that. And obviously there's well-used tropes in it. There was nothing unexpected really in it, but it was still a very entertaining, you know, popcorn movie. Just kick back, watch and enjoy. So thanks to Joe and to everyone else out there who recommended Beastmaster to us.
Hey, John, I'm listening to your Animal Companion podcast. I'm going to get back to it here shortly. This is Randy. The spell you're thinking of is Find Familiar. It should be a first-level spell in first edition and second. I bet you probably already been told that, but I'm enjoying it. I think I'm going to have some other comments, too, because this is a very interesting discussion. So, anyway, keep up the good work. Talk to you later.
Hi again, Randy. Many thanks for that. I knew that our listeners would probably be able to find that more quickly than I could. I must admit, I'm not particularly familiar with the rule books.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the great things. I mean, we often talk about how in games, if you've got someone who like knows the rules better than you have, as long as they're not being an arsehole with it, then they can actually be a great resource, because we've all got gaps in our knowledge and stuff like that, and it's really great to have people just be like, oh, if you need it, here's the information you need. So yeah, so thanks again to everyone who suggested that, and obviously Randy, much appreciated. If we ever do an episode in the future and we don't know the name of something and you know it, feel free to shout it out to us via a voicemail. It's always handy to get those gaps in our knowledge filled in, or hell, just tell us anything you want to see on the podcast in the future, like when people were talking about Beastmaster, as we discussed earlier.
Hey, John, this is Randy again from Biggest Geekus. Thinking about your comment on the Cloakers, and that's a side comment you made about Darrow and Durgar and Drow. You seem like they're all wearing cloaks. Actually, if you read Monster Manual 2, and I think it was even in the Fire Giant King, Hall of the Fire Giant King in 1E, Drow did all have magical cloaks and boots of elvenkind, and they would wear them, and in the surface, remember later on they even described them as being destroyed when they were exposed to sunlight. So it would kind of make sense. You could make a good argument that the Cloakers should probably pretend to be a cloak and capture some drow and stuff, because they would be wearing cloaks, according to the Monster Manual. Anyway, I knew that was somewhere in the D&D history. Have a good day. Thanks.
Cheers for that, Randy. Yeah, you're absolutely right. As soon as you started talking about elves with cloaks, I was like, oh yeah, of course, cloaks of elvenkind.
Another point that sort of occurs to me as you say this, if the Underdark's got some like evil Underdark empire and they've been around for like donkey's ages,
which for our non-UK listeners means a long time.
and they've got their own uniform, and that uniform's been around for ages and ages. The Cloakers are going to be familiar with the standard issue evil army cape. There's going to be loads of them kicking around.
Yeah, true. It's also interesting if you could envision a cloaker that could, like, perhaps subtly, like, change its coloration to match specific cloaks or uniforms. I mean, obviously that is making it a bit more powerful than the standard one because it's got this chameleon-like sort of colour change in. But yeah, I could see that being a pretty big threat, to be honest. Like you say, it sort of slides itself into, like, your barracks or whatever, has a quick look around at the uniforms, and then slowly, like, changes itself. So when people come in, they're just like, oh, look, there's 6 white cloaks there or whatever, and they pick the 6th one up, and that's the cloaker.
There you go.
Yeah, great suggestion. Thank you very much, Randy. And thank you for reminding me of the Cloaks of Elvenkind. And yeah, I do vaguely recall the original Drow had equipment that sort of decayed and was useless after it was exposed to direct sunlight for a bit.
Hey, Hannah and John, Jason here. Great episode on Animal Companions and Beastmaster. AD&D First Edition does have animal companion, familiars for magic users. Spell should be a first level spell. The details on that familiars might be in the Dungeon Master's Guide, though. I'm driving, but I'll try to get it to you guys later on. As far as Beastmaster goes, yeah, they were tigers that were dyed black. They had a couple they were working with. They had to, knock them out to dye them black, put them under anesthesia. And one of the tigers during the filming didn't wake up from the anesthesia, which I guess is an issue with felines. What else? Hannah brought something really interesting discussion. So I did an episode on animal companions a while back where I, mentioned the ways to control them would be the DM controls them, the player controls them, or you just add bonuses to the rolls, which you guys kind of talked about that stuff. But Hannah's idea, the player to the left or right roles for them, is interesting, and I hadn't heard that before. But I really like that idea. So very interesting discussion. Talk to you soon.
Hi, Jason. Many thanks for all of that. The tiger story's really, really dark.
Yeah, that was a bit bleak.
Utterly bleak. While we were watching the film, we did discuss the fact that there would be no way to make that same sort of a film now because you would not be allowed to do those things with those animals.
Yeah, because like the animal care regulations and stuff like that.
Which is obviously a very good thing and does sort of remind you of like why it's better to have a crappy CGI tiger than a real tiger in a movie, even if it does look rubbish. I'd still rather it be CGI.
Yeah, but thanks for calling in, Jason. I know you said you'd had some problems with SpeakPipe on your phone, so I hope that's sorted out now, and we can look forward to many of your calls in future. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much, dude.
Hello, John and Hannah. This is Joe from Biggest Geekus, and I'm listening to your episode on Animal Companions, and you were wondering about the first edition version of the familiar ability for the wizard or the magic user at that point. It's a first level spell called Find Familiar, and it has an interesting bit of history, as it is in the words of Radio Grognard, a gotcha spell, because while it does provide you a familiar, if said familiar is killed with within a certain circumstance, you lose some hit points permanently, which for the magic user having very few hit points could be an instant kill situation. There's a infamous illustration, I believe, in a Dragon magazine, of a fighter holding a cat with a dagger pointed to it in front of its apparent wizard master. So, yes, it has a bit of a history. Anyway, great episode so far. I'll finish listening to it, and you guys have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, thanks again, Joe, and thanks to all the people who called in to let us know about the Find Familiar spell. And an interesting bit of history there from Joe.
Yeah, I think we've got a pile of Dragon magazines. We should see if we've got any left.
Yeah, maybe we could do a few episodes where we could just like pick. So I have like a mad stack of like old Dragon magazines from when it was like a print version. I mean, not the really old stuff, but like like the 3.5 era stuff. Maybe we could like flick through a magazine or something, pick out an article that interests us, and sort of like break it down and discuss it. A bit like we do with our monster episodes. If that's something you guys would like to hear, call in and let us know, and maybe we'll do a couple of episodes on it, see how they sort of shake out, and whether it's interesting enough to do as like a regular thing. But yeah, thank you very much for that history on that, Joe. I agree, it is a bit of a gotcha spell, and obviously if you're trying to take out a powerful wizard, one of the best ways to do it is to look for a weakness, and if they've got like a poorly defended familiar, then yeah, that's an obvious weakness that their opponents can capitalise on. I mean, let's face it, there's a reason like liches like hide their phylacteries away, and I'm sure there's a reason that careful wizards keep the cat tucked well out of sight as well.
Hey there, you two. Awesome episode on Cloakers. Man, that is a really weird monster for sure. I love the fact, though, that if they got somebody wrapped up and you hit them, the person they have wrapped up takes half the damage. I think that's rad. It's super fun. The players hate it, but it makes me chuckle. One of the many weird things about me, I think, is that the first time I came across most of these iconic D&D monsters was with Pathfinder, despite the fact that I've been playing RPGs since the mid-'80s. But we mostly play, like I said, MERP, Rollmaster, Cyberpunk, Top Secret, those kind of games, and not D&D. So, from a nostalgic point of view, these monsters, Pathfinder is my touchstone. So it's really interesting to hear all the original versions of them and see what Pathfinder did. But anyway, that was super kind of y'all to do the Pathfinder one. So thanks very much.
That was, of course, Joe from the Hindsightless podcast, giving us a little bit of history there. Glad you enjoyed the episode.
Yep, many thanks for the recommendation of the Pathfinder, but we'll try and add Pathfinder onto the list of stuff to look at when we do monster episodes.
Yeah, I think if we come across a monster where the sort of Pathfinder version of it's significantly different from the sort of 3.5 version, we'll definitely try and sort of slide that in there a little bit more. And we're trying to look at some of the other sort of bestiary books we've got as well, just to give a little bit of a sort of broader view of things as we go forward. So thank you very much for that message, dude. Greatly appreciated.
Dude, I can't believe I forgot to mention, but Cloakers, the first time I came across them, instantly made me think about those creepy, weird monsters from the 80s movie Beastmaster. Those kind of like humanoid bat things with the friggin' flesh attached to their arms, and they'd wrap up somebody and they'd just be shaking and shaking, and then they'd open their arms and they were just bones. Those had to be inspired by Cloakers, man. I mean, they were basically Cloakers, but way more humanoid. I don't know if you've ever seen Beastmaster. I'm guessing, I don't know. I don't want to guess. I have no idea if you or Hannah has seen Beastmaster, but if not, well, then not. It's an amazing 80s movie, amazing 80s fantasy movie. So take that for what it is. Very handsome blonde man as the lead star. I think he's blonde. He should be anyway.
Cheers again, Joe. Yeah, quite a few people recommended Beastmaster to us, and we both had an absolute ball watching that. And all the way through, we were like, so when these Cloakers going to turn up then? And then when they did, we were not disappointed. Like I said, really loved the practical effects. And the main actor, Mark Singer, also played Donovan in the V TV series.
I expect they probably didn't do very well on their animal rights issues either.
No, I should imagine not with all that eating mice and whatever. But like I say, that's how I know him, as Mike Donovan from the V series. Although I couldn't recall the character name, but as we were watching this, I was like, is that like guy out of V? And so like it kept sort of ticking through in my mind as we were watching it. But yeah, we had great fun watching Beastmaster, so thanks to Joe and to all the people who recommended that we give it a watch. Yeah. It was really just a good, fun movie to see.
any other films you want to recommend, guys? We'd love to hear your recommendations.
Yeah, any fantasy films that you think we can take something out of, or that we can explore or get some inspiration from for like D&D or other games in the podcast, just shout out and we'll give them a watch and see if we can maybe pull something out of them for future episodes.
Hi Hannah, hi John, Goblin's Henchman here. So first up, congratulations on making the Cloaker issue episode interesting. When I saw it, I thought, well, you're going to struggle there, because I thought it'd all been done and dusted and, you know, all pretty straightforward. So I think you did a good job. Now, I'm going to lean into what Hannah said. I think she's right. I think human beings have a terrible habit of seeing the world through the prism of being a human being. So, for example, whenever I'm trotting about the place, I'm forever seeing faces. See a face in the printer, see a face in the tree, see a face in the ground, see a face in the snow. But that's not really its purpose. It's just the way it is, and we see that pattern there. So, for example, if we look at our own Underdark, I believe there's a creature in the deep ocean called a gulper eel. And so that gulper eel looks a bit like a normal eel, except when something gets really close, it kind of expands into sort of almost the size of a bin bag and gulps up the creature. So, you know, I could see an argument there. I don't think D&D creatures need rhyme or reason, actually, but let's just say we go down that route. The Cloaker could have evolved a similar strategy in the Underdark, whereby it's just going for maximum surface area. Something comes nearby, instead of gulping it like a gulper eel, it just kind of like envelops it in a blanket, and then, you know, nom 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 thereafter. So, you know, fast forward a few millennia, or whatever, and then, you know, these humanoids come along and go, oh look, it's a cloak, and they walk straight into the Cloaker's maw, as it were. You know, and the Cloakers, you know, its alien mind thinking, you know, don't look a gift humanoid in the mouth. So yeah, I think there's definitely an argument for the ecology of a Cloaker, even though I don't think it necessarily needs it. The other thing I quite like was John's idea of, you know, some sort of parasitic version, and I was just thinking, imagine a Cloaker being the predecessor of a mind flayer. You know, whether you think that works or not, I don't know. But, you know, first of all, it captures a human, latches onto it like a cloak, slowly devours the brain, and then thereafter it sort of metamorphoses into sort of a mind flayer, and then that's the next step. It's 100% eating brains. Cloak is probably bigger than that, but I think you can make a, you know, wave your hands a bit. Anyway, again, I thought it was a really fun episode, actually, because, as I said, I was a little bit dubious. I thought you were going to have to squeeze pretty hard to make this episode interesting, and you definitely exceeded that by a good margin, so thanks for that. Cheers.
Many thanks for that, Goblin's Henchman. And with your mention of people seeing things,
yeah, patterns and stuff,
patterns in things, and harking back to the start of the episode where we were talking about in-jokes, I'm going to tell you of an epic story from LARP. We're standing on the line defending a scout hut behind us, and there's a field in front with a hedge down one side, and I could see this monster clear as day. I could see his silhouette perfectly. I could see his cloak over his head. I could see his sword in his hand. I could even see him moving about a little bit. And I elbow my friends. Here, boys, if I go up the side here, I can have him. Keep an eye out. So the lads all watch me go along the side of this hedge really carefully in the shadows. Really, really stealthy, I'm sure I was. I was about 4 pints in. And I jumped out from behind the hedge and smacked this guy with my sword. And he went clang, because it was a bin with a standpipe next to it. Yeah. So yeah, I can buy that you'd see something on the ground that looked vaguely fabricy and think it was a cloak.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about like Simulcra. We're readers of 40 Times, and they have like a Simulcra corner in that, where it's people just send in photos of like things that look like other things. And obviously we all know the famous ones of like people seeing like religious figures in like burnt bits of toast and stuff like that. But I do think you're absolutely right, Goblin's Henchman. We tend to see what we want to see, and there's a lot of research been done on various documentaries I've watched that says that sort of human brains sort of learning to put patterns between things and link them together was like a valuable survival technique sort of back in the day. And it's obviously just like a hardwired part of our brain that's still in there, and we still do it now. I mean, think of people looking at clouds and seeing shapes in clouds. So yeah, I can totally buy what you and Hannah are saying, that like if you want to think it looks like a cloak, you'll probably ignore any like minor little inconsistencies and you'll see it as a cloak. But I'm glad you enjoyed the episode. I've got to admit, we were a little bit sort of, not dubious, but we were a little bit sort of like, at the start, we were like, how much are we going to be able to get out about a cloaker?
I certainly rolled my eyes when I heard that was what we were doing this week.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the handy things about the way we're doing it at the minute, where we're doing the Twitter poll to get people to choose the monsters, is because it forces us in a way to like be a bit more sort of, have a bit more ingenuity when it comes to the episodes, because we want them to try and be interesting. But occasionally we get monsters where we're just like, oh, well, what's to be said about that? It's just a big thing that looks like a cloak and eats people.
But when you guys pick them, you do always pick one that turns out to be a lot more interesting than we thought it would.
Yeah, and we found with the cloaker, like we have with a few others, that once we actually started talking about it, the different possibilities of how you could use it, it was actually a very interesting creature. And I think your idea of like it being like a sort of infant stage almost for mind flayers is a great one. I mean, obviously we know that like as far as like canon sort of D&D goes, mind flayers start off as like big tadpole things, but there's no reason it has to be that way in your game. And I think a lot of these sort of outsider sort of Cthulhu-esque style creatures can, if the GM wants to, potentially be linked together. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you very much for your calling. So that's all the voicemails we have this episode.
Thanks for sending them in, guys.
Yeah, it's very much appreciated. And as we always say, if you want to comment on anything we've done in any of our shows, you want to suggest something you'd like to see in future, you want to tell us one of your own sort of cool gaming in-joke stories, or anything else really, you can get in touch with us in one of two ways. You can leave us a voicemail message using the SpeakPipe website. There'll be a link in the description of this show. Or, as Goblin's Henchman did, you could even just attach a sound file to an email and send it to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. And we will try and gather into the episode and answer it as soon as we possibly can. So thank you again to all our wonderful callers and all of our listeners. So whatever game you're playing, whenever you're playing it, stay safe, have fun, and take care.
Bye.